So T'Challa, or Black Panther, is historically one of the most important characters in the history of comic books. And the reason that I say this is because he really kind of changed the archetype for African Americans in comic books as a whole. And I would go as far as to say that he stands alongside characters such as Superman and Spider-Man. But where Superman created the superhero standard, he was really kind of the model for virtually all superheroes that would come after him, and Spider-Man brought teenagers out of the realm of being relegated to sidekicks. Black Panther introduced to us our first black superhero with superpowers, and this is something that had never been seen before. Now, for the sake of this video, we're really only going to be focusing on Black Panther proper, meaning that we're going to focus on him very little when he's part of the Avengers. And we're going to be spending more time focusing on the Jungle Action series, in addition to the publication history between volumes 1 and 4 and the events leading up to the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline. So Black Panther first appears in July of 1966 in a two-part story in the Fantastic Four issues number 52 and 53 called The Black Panther. And what we see here is that an emissary of the Black Panther has appeared to the Fantastic Four at their home base of operations in the Baxter Building and lets them know or informs them that his king, his chieftain, has invited the Fantastic Four to the kingdom of Wakanda, and that if they choose to accept, a great hunt will be offered in their honor. The Fantastic Four, of course, choose to accept this invitation, but are kind of astounded to see that this individual is in possession of a piece of technology that allows him to communicate with his chieftain halfway across the world. As we see the Fantastic Four arrive at the kingdom of Wakanda, they are again surprised to see that instead of this area being a lush jungle paradise, that it is a technological paradise, that there are all forms of technology available here, and that the technology that does exist here actually is either equal to or exceeds a lot of the technology that exists in the world at the time. Ultimately, we learn that the great hunt that is supposed to take place in honor of the Fantastic Four is actually the chieftain of Wakanda, the Black Panther, hunting the Fantastic Four. We see that over the course of issue number 52 that he is able to separate the Fantastic Four and defeat each one individually. However, we also see that a friend of Johnny Storm's who was brought along for the journey, named Wyatt Wingfoot, is able to infiltrate part of Wakanda and able to free Johnny Storm. With Johnny Storm being freed, Johnny Storm is able to free the remaining members of the Fantastic Four, and together they were able to defeat the Black Panther. Now, what we see here is that the Black Panther really reveals why it was that he attacked the Fantastic Four in the first place. And the reason is kind of a backstory to Black Panther. It gives us a little bit of an explanation in terms of how he became who he was. And what we learn is that the Black Panther is the son of the previous Black Panther, the chieftain of Wakanda, and I believe his name is T'Challa. I cannot pronounce that name for the life of me. It's very difficult to pronounce. But in any event, a villain named Ulysses Claw, who will actually become one of the masters of evil and one of the individuals that worked alongside Ultron later on in the Avengers, we see that Ulysses Claw had actually killed his father in addition to various other members of Wakanda in an attempt to gain access to the vast vibranium stores that Wakanda possesses. We ultimately see that after the death of T'Challa's father, that T'Challa himself picks up the mantle of Black Panther and becomes the chieftain of the Wakanda tribe, the Panther tribe in the Wakanda country. We also see that the reason for him attacking the Fantastic Four was to also test their abilities, because he knew that at one point in time or some point in the future that Claw would return to attempt to take the vibranium stores by force. Now we ultimately see that Claw does return, and with the assistance of the Fantastic Four, Black Panther is able to thwart the schemes of the Claw. Now, it was the intention of T'Challa to kill Claw, but Mr. Fantastic actually stops him from doing this. Ultimately, at the end of the two-part series, we see that Black Panther has kind of come to the realization that his powers, his abilities, could be used for a more global method of protection. That is simply, he's really not needed simply in Wakanda. And so we actually see him leave, and we will pick up with him in issue number 52 of the Avengers. So the next time that we see Black Panther is in May of 1968, and he first appears in the Avengers issue number 52, and this marks the first full-on appearance of Black Panther in the Avengers as a member of the Avengers team, and as far as I understand it, he's part of the Avengers team for about 98 issues or so, for a few years. And as part of the Avengers, he's actually witness to a multitude of various events and adventures, in addition to coming across some of the most notable and some of the lesser-known villains in Marvel Comics. We see that he is one of the original members of the Avengers that comes into contact with Ultron for the first time. We ultimately see that he leaves the Avengers and ends up going back to Wakanda, and we pick up with him again in Jungle Action issue number 5, and in a new issue of Jungle Action issue number 6. So after T'Challa leaves the Avengers, we pick up with him in Jungle Action. And Jungle Action is a series that runs between issues number 5 and issues number 24 between 1973, I believe July of 1973, and November of 1976. Now, it's really kind of a misnomer when we say issue number 5 being him featured in Jungle Action, because this was actually a reprint of a previous Avengers story. The new issues of Jungle Action starring Black Panther actually don't start until issue number 6, and that premieres in September of 1973. Now, the Jungle Action stories are actually very important regarding the publication history of Marvel Comics and Black Panther, and the reason why is because this is the first time that we actually see Black Panther getting his own storyline. In addition, the Jungle Action stories are split up into two main parts, but the entire run of Black Panther in Jungle Action is referred to as the Panther's Rage storyline. And what we see in the first part is that Black Panther has returned to Wakanda after having been part of the Avengers to find that a villain named Killmonger has attempted to usurp the throne of king from him. Ultimately, he is successful in fending it off. In part 2, we see that he has traveled back to the United States to fight the Ku Klux Klan. Now, this is really kind of important here because this is really kind of a representation in comic books of the Black Power struggle against racist elements within the United States. Following the Jungle Action series, we actually pick up with Black Panther in Volume 1. Some of the most notable story arcs involving the Black Panther in Marvel Comics actually take place between Volume 1 in 1977 and the end of Volume 4 in 2008. And what we see in Volume 1 is the return of Ulysses Klaue for the most part. He's really kind of the mainstay villain, or the most notable villain, to make an appearance in Black Panther Volume 1. And he's really swiftly defeated by Black Panther, because this really kind of marks the point in which Black Panther is moving beyond your normal garden variety old school villains like the Claw, and moving more towards involvement in larger events in the Marvel Universe. In Volume 3, we actually see that Eric Killmonger returns to defeat Black Panther in ritual combat, and therefore take the role of both Black Panther and the King of Wakanda himself. In addition, we also see that Eric Killmonger consumes the herb that's reserved for the royal family line, which grants them enhanced abilities, the abilities that Black Panther himself has, although we end up seeing that because he's not part of the royal family line, he succumbs to the effects of the herb and is presumed to have been killed. In addition, in the 2006-2007 crossover event, The Civil War, we see that he marries Aurora Monroe, and that they also take stands against the Superhuman Registration Act alongside Captain America. What we also see in the 2008 event, The Secret Invasion, is that the Skrulls and the Wakandan people come to a technological standstill in terms of their fighting, and are ultimately reduced to using very old-fashioned weapons, swords and spears and shields. We also see that in the event, The Man Without Fear, that Matt Murdock, the character Daredevil, approaches Black Panther and asks him to undertake the role of Daredevil in Hell's Kitchen, New York, for a temporary time, while Matt Murdock sort of comes to personal understanding and deals with his own moral philosophies. We see that Black Panther undertakes this role, and when Matt Murdock returns, Black Panther himself returns to Wakanda. So the powers of the Black Panther are really kind of intriguing here. They're really kind of interesting. And in truth, they can be a little bit confusing in terms of how he gains his powers in the Marvel Comics if you're not a consistent reader. And even myself have to go back from time to time and reread Black Panther comics to ensure that I've actually got it correct in terms of how it is that he gains his powers. As I understand it, the method in which he gains his powers is actually twofold. One is him gaining his powers, and the other one is an augment to the powers that he gains. The inherent abilities that are given to him once he undertakes the mantle of Black Panther are enhanced speed, enhanced senses, all senses being enhanced, enhanced agility, pretty much putting him on par physically with Captain America or even Wolverine. Now, the way that he gains these abilities is by undertaking a rite of passage. And the rite of passage is what grants him the ability to become the Black Panther. He can't simply put on a mask and become the Black Panther. I guess arguably he could, but he wouldn't necessarily have the abilities. The Panther god of the Wakandan people has to recognize a person as being the Black Panther, and once that happens, the abilities of the Black Panther are bestowed on them. Now, the powers that are given to him are actually augmented by a special heart-shaped herb. Now, whether or not he takes the herb first, or it's necessary to take the herb first, and then become the Black Panther, I'm not entirely sure. I would go as far as to say that it's not really necessary. As we saw with Killmonger, only members of the royal line are able to consume the heart-shaped herb without succumbing to the effects and near death. Ultimately, we see that with Black Panther having the senses that he does, he is very particular in terms of his role in the Marvel Universe. With him having acute senses, he is able to memorize a multitude of individual scents over the course of his lifetime and never forgets those. So let's say, for example, in Marvel Comics, he actually deduces the identity of Matt Murdock as Daredevil. And the way he does this is, of course, he meets Matt Murdock and gains the scent of Matt Murdock. After encountering Daredevil, the scent is the same, therefore to him, they are both the same person, and of course he's right in terms of this deductive logic. In addition to the powers that Black Panther has, he is a prodigious martial artist. He is a master in various forms of world-renowned martial arts, in addition to unknown forms of martial arts that are restricted to Africa. On top of this, due to the advanced technology available to him as the chieftain of Wakanda, he has a multitude of technological devices at his expense, I guess, or at his use, and he uses these devices for a multitude of different effects. Depending on what the circumstances are, depending on the writer, he may use something like an energy dagger, or it may simply be he will use his suit, which is composed of vibranium, to the full extent, but really use nothing else aside from his physical attributes. Overall, the powers that he has and the abilities that he has make him a very pivotal character, both in his own solo series, in addition to being part of the Avengers, as well as taking over the role of Daredevil in Marvel Comics once Matt Murdock leaves. So as I understand it, Marvel has confirmed that there will be a Black Panther film that will take place sometime after Ant-Man's release in Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But as I understand it, there have currently not been any casting calls for individuals to play the role of Black Panther, although I could be wrong on this. However, in my mind, there's really only one person who is suitable to play the role of Black Panther in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that person is, of course, Michael Jai White. Now, a lot of people are unfamiliar with who Michael Jai White is, but to me, he is really the only person capable of pulling off the character of Black Panther for several reasons. One of Black Panther's most notable attributes is the fact that he is a prodigious martial artist, and Michael Jai White himself falls into this category. To my knowledge, Michael Jai White holds black belts in 8 different martial arts and has been studying martial arts for about 20 years. In addition to this, he has a great physical physique, and of course, he's African American. And so for these reasons, I really couldn't see anybody else playing the role. Now, in terms of Michael Jai White's filmography, his film history, he's really kind of been relegated to a lot of B-rated films, direct-to-DVD films, blood and bone, movies like that. Of course, I first saw him in Universal Soldier: The Return, but of course that wasn't a critically successful film. But I really think a lot of this is due to the fact that he's kind of pigeonholed in terms of his film appearances, because a lot of individuals that you see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are either very well well-known actors, or actors that have appeared in some critically successful films, but weren't necessarily huge Hollywood blockbuster actors. I think that with Michael Jai White, this is an instance of a guy who, if given a chance to really kind of demonstrate his acting prowess, that he would surprise quite a few people, and I really think that he would be a fantastic choice to play the character of T'Challa or Black Panther in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and I will catch you guys later. Peace!